Production and distribution of City Club forums on IdeaStream are made possible by the generous support of PNC and the Raskin Family Fund, with additional funding from Cleveland State University, Robert Conrad, and the Payne Fund.
Good afternoon and welcome to the City Club of Cleveland. I'm Lev Gonek, CEO of Digital C and a proud member of the City Club of Cleveland. Digital C is Cleveland's civic technology collaborative, catalyzing technology for community benefit. It's my pleasure to introduce to you today's speaker, the Mayor of Chattanooga, Tennessee, Andy Berke. Chattanooga, Tennessee is a center of innovation, an example of how harnessing technology and community infrastructure can spur economic development. Starting in 2008, it began offering, quote, internet faster than Google to citizens and businesses. Currently, Chattanooga offers services up to 10 gigabits, which is more than 800 times faster than my high-speed connection in Shaker Heights at the same price point. In Chattanooga, radiologists can receive, send, and interact in real time with CT scan quality medical images from their homes. But the city didn't stop there. Chattanooga took steps to further harness the unique advantages of having one of, in fact, the fastest, cheapest, and most pervasive internet infrastructure in the country. Following a robust public engagement process, the city established an innovation district, 140 acres in the heart of downtown that houses a catalytic mix of startup businesses, incubators, accelerators, alongside investors and public amenities. In addition, the city, under Mayor Berke's leadership, the city has partnered with various nonprofits, businesses, and county government to launch one of the nation's most ambitious digital inclusion programs focused on senior citizens and youth. Chattanooga is a city on the move with an enviable population growth and more than $50 million of investable venture capital. Chattanooga has experienced the third highest wage growth in the country for mid-sized cities in 2014. Many of these developments occurred under the leadership of Chattanooga Mayor Andy Berke. How did he do it? Can his success be replicated? Mayor Berke was elected mayor of Chattanooga in March of 2013 with over 72% of the electoral vote. Immediately following his inauguration, Mayor Berke streamlined government with top-to-bottom reorganization, leading with a clarion call for open data. The Berke administration has focused on making Chattanooga's streets safer, families stronger, growing middle-class jobs, and using taxpayers' dollars more efficiently. For these efforts, Mayor Berke was named the 2015 Municipal Leader of the Year by American City and County Magazine. Mayor Berke graduated with honors from Stanford University and the University of Chicago Law School. In 1995, after clerking for a federal judge at the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, he decided to join his father's law firm. While a practicing attorney, he became involved in local political races until he decided to become a candidate himself, getting elected to state senate in 2007 and re-elected in 2008, serving as vice chair of the Democratic caucus. Ladies and gentlemen, members and friends of the City Club of Cleveland, please join me in welcoming Mayor Andy Berke.
Well, that's very kind, Lev, and in preparation for this, I read about the famous Q&A session at the City Club, and so I was hoping you would tamp down expectations just a little bit for me so y'all wouldn't ask me hard questions, but I don't think you did a very good job, Lev. I want to say a big thank you to Digital C. The last day or so, I've been talking to them and hearing about what they've been doing, and obviously tremendous catalytic work, and so to Lev and to Digital C and all the people who work there, thank you very much. I want to tell y'all a little bit about how I got here, and that is that I was invited by my friends Michael and Stacy Goldberg several months ago to do this. Stacy is here. I did Michael one big favor in my life, one big favor, and that was when we were 16 years old, I took Stacy on her first car date. And talk about setting a low bar. That was our only date that we had. And so I made it really easy for Michael to come in and be a great husband to her. I met, Michael is one of the smartest, most interesting people that I know. Stacy, I admire their family so much and the bar that they've set. When I first met Michael, he was a huge LeBron fan. Then I knew him when he was a huge LeBron hater. Then I knew him when he was a huge LeBron fan. So I've really, it's been great to establish that friendship over the years. A couple other people I just want to make sure I say thank you to. Number one is Armin Budish, who I got to spend a little time with yesterday, has a great interest in technology and obviously a really sophisticated understanding of how government works, and it was a pleasure spending a few minutes with him. So thank you very much. My friend Matt Zone, who I've gotten to know through the National League of Cities, does a fantastic job of speaking out for municipal issues, and we thank you, Matt. And then I know we have our council president, Kevin Kelly, and thank you for coming here today. So, my talk today is maximizing community infrastructure to spur economic development. Hopefully that will be the worst prose that you hear all day today, and that from here on out it's going to flow a lot easier. So, this is my hometown. This is the place I grew up, Chattanooga, Tennessee. Chattanooga is a beautiful community. It's a valley surrounded by mountains with a river that cuts through it. And for those of you listening on the radio, we have a beautiful picture of our downtown and good days, and you can see it. A couple things that you should know about Chattanooga. Next year, we will become the first city in the world to host 4 Ironman races. I don't know how much y'all know about Ironman, but here it is. It's a crazy people who go out and they run 26 miles, they bike 112 miles, and they swim 2.4 miles. It is an incredible generator for the tourism industry in your area. We have 3,500 people who will be here this weekend. Each of them brings along 3.5 people. Why will we be the first city next year to host 4 Ironman races? 2 years ago, or last year, I guess it was, Outside Magazine called us best town ever. Not so bad. We are the home to an innovation district, which I'm going to talk a lot more about. And it has beautiful public spaces, a thriving infrastructure, and we're going to go a little bit more into it. And then number 3, we have the fastest, cheapest, most pervasive internet, not just in the country, but in the world. But as y'all can tell, and we have a lot of kinship with Cleveland, wasn't always like this. The city that I grew up in looked a lot more like this, a dirty industrial town. It was a place where there was smog everywhere. And in fact, we had held on to the past for too long. We thought that steel and coal and foundries would go on forever. Turned out that we were wrong. And so it was a very difficult process to get from the picture that you see right here to where we are today. And that's what I want to spend a little bit of time talking to you about. Tell you that some of the things that we've done right, and hopefully share with you some things that we as a city and I personally as mayor have gotten wrong, and help you a little bit along your way. It's always difficult to go into a great city like Cleveland and say, here's what's so great about our city, especially in front of community leaders, because I know y'all are doing much of the same work. But hopefully there's a few lessons that we've had that can help Cleveland in its journey today. So, in 1969, Walter Cronkite, the most trusted man in America, did a special on Chattanooga calling it the dirtiest city in America. Now, I know that Cleveland has had its difficult times. I know that you had a river that burned, and yet we were called the dirtiest city in America. So, what was the good news? The good news is that we cleaned up our air, cleaned our river, made sure that it was a beautiful place. As I pointed out earlier, we are surrounded by mountains, so the smoke that was billowing out of those stacks would stay contained in our little valley and pollute everything so that literally you could not see a couple of blocks away because of the smog. Our river was dirty. We cleaned all that up. That was good news. The bad news was one of the major factors in cleaning up our city was that all the jobs left. They picked up and they moved to where labor was cheaper. They went overseas. And we were left as a city that had been grounded in this steel and foundry with nothing left. So, unlike a lot of cities, Chattanooga decided relatively early to pick up and figure out what we needed to do differently. And so in the 1980s, the city went through a large visioning process. Community and civic leaders gathered together to figure out what are those next big things that we need to do to make our city great, and in particular to invest in the core that really returns our city to its former greatness. They came up with the idea to invest in our waterfront. We had this fantastic amenity, this river that came through the middle of it, and yet everything was being built away from it. So we turned in the 1980s to the waterfront, and we built an aquarium right along the waterfront, and importantly, took over the highways and the streets, made them a lot narrower, slowed down traffic, and really tried to create a true environment for development in the area, much like I know Cleveland has done, particularly in recent years. So as we put that downtown together, we started figuring out what were the major places that we could make a difference in terms of growing our manufacturing base back that we had lost. One place that we had was auto manufacturing, and to figure out how we continued to grow that. So our community leaders secured a federal munitions site, built it out as a mega site, and lured Volkswagen to our city, and now Chattanooga is the home of the only U.S. manufacturing presence for Volkswagen. And despite some recent setbacks, probably none of you have heard about them, despite some recent setbacks, Volkswagen is building its brand new SUV in Chattanooga. They're ramping up with another couple thousand jobs. We managed to secure that agreement with them last year. And so when it comes out in early 2017, I expect everyone here to be driving a new VW SUV. Our city will appreciate it. Then the next stage came. And what was really important for us is to figure out, okay, we're working on our manufacturing base. We've kind of brought this tourism downtown. What comes next? And one of the community answers was we need to invest in our infrastructure, particularly in broadband. So, what and where is the gig? Let's start with a definition. So, a gig is 1,000 megabits per second of data that streams along your network. To give you an idea, if you have a provider at home, I think Lev said that he may get, 25 or 50, 15? You may get 15 megabits of data that goes. That's the speed at which the data is traveling along your network. In Chattanooga, we now have 3 different speeds. We start at 100, so that's your cheapest option, is 100 megabits per second. Our next level is 1,000 megabits per second, or 1 gig. And the level after that is 10 gig. That's our newest level, which we pioneered doing that and announced it, I think, about 6 months ago. And it's offered at relatively competitive prices to what you would see, and it's all owned by the city. Our electric utility built it out in 2009, 2/3 with bonding and 1/3 with funding from the stimulus dollars. And since then, we've captured about a little bit over 60% of the market, and it's enormously profitable. So here's some important facts about it. As I said, it's the fastest, cheapest, most pervasive internet in the world. And the key here is not just fastest, it's most pervasive. It goes to every single home and business in a 600 square mile area. Not some homes, not some neighborhoods. Doesn't matter what your business does, if you're a barber shop, if you're an insurance company, if you live in a $60,000 house or a $600,000 house. You have the exact same connection that comes to your door. And that is a tremendous opportunity for our city. So we became a gig city in 2009. And as we did it, we were excited because here we are, at least in that time, it was going to be the first gig city alongside Lafayette, Louisiana. And we turned on our internet and we said, welcome Google. We're glad to have you here. Apple, come on in. We have the fastest internet in the world. We know that all you tech companies are going to come to Chattanooga, and guess what? None of them came. So we called all the venture capital firms in Silicon Valley. We said, okay, Google and Apple, we realize now that we're not going to get them, so we're going to call these venture firms. We're going to get them to come to our city. We called all them, and none of them came. So first rule for me that I learned is expect the unexpected. For us, we tried a lot of different things, and it didn't work. So what did we do next? We said, we're going to generate a whole bunch of activity, and with this activity, we're going to figure out if we can make some things happen, and that will bring the Googles and the Apples and the venture capitalists to the city because they'll see that this is a great place to play and figure out next generation technology. Well, we did that, and all of a sudden what happened was we started having internal success. And pretty quickly it became clear to us that it wasn't about getting Google and Apple to come here, it was about growing our own and making sure that our success was elevated and that that would really be the way of the future. So let me give you an example. In 2013, a guy went to what we call our 48-hour launches. 48-hour launch for us means that you walk in, you have some mentors, you workshop your idea, talk about what it is you want to do, and then walk away with a prize and maybe some capital. This guy's idea was, what if we could text message to get a restaurant reservation? And he didn't win. But he walked out and somebody gave him $25,000 of seed money to get started. He hired only local developers and got a little bit more money, ended up with about $200,000 more of venture and angel dollars. And then about 6 months later, sold his idea to OpenTable for $11.5 million. Right? Now, this was started again through one of our local groups, kind of built together with some success, workshopped around our city, and then within a few months, we've got OpenTable. The most important part of that story, though, is that OpenTable decided to build a presence in Chattanooga rather than just taking the ideas and the technology and going back to Silicon Valley. So I met with the head of OpenTable, or the person responsible for the acquisition, right when it occurred, and I sat down with him, and he said to me then, he said this, if I have a lesson for you, what it would be is that every entrepreneur in the country should be thinking about what is it that the next tech company needs, because OpenTable doesn't invest in R&D anymore. We just buy the companies who are doing it for us. I'd figure out what is it that these companies need. I would partner up to prove the technology, and then I would go out and I would sell it. And I said to myself, well, that seems like something we should just make routine in our city as a basis. So the part of the story that I left out was this company called QuickQ, which became OpenTable. They partnered with a local restaurant company to pilot their technology, and once they showed that it worked, that's when they were able to sell it to OpenTable. So this combination of entrepreneurs, existing businesses, research and technology, that's the mix that we wanted to make routine. So in 2013, I then started this task force on gig tech and entrepreneurship. It was all about figuring out how we made that happen. In particular, how would we build an innovation district to make this kind of interaction routine? So we wanted to bring entrepreneurs, people who already were in the market for technology, researchers, creatives, all into the same area and get that happening on a regular basis. So we took our community and we established a ground zero. at 11th and Market in the core of our city and said that is the head of our innovation district, and everything within a 5-minute walk is in the circle. Everything that's outside, that isn't there. Not only that, but we made a one entity called the Enterprise Center the driver of the innovation district, as well as all of our other innovation assets like digital equity, which I'll be talking about in just a minute. And we said to everybody, come right here. No matter where you are in the city, no matter what you might be working on, if you're an innovation company, we're there, because new ideas come when we have interaction. You want to know why Apple and Google and all these companies, they've torn out all of their cubes and they've got people sitting on top of each other? They want to create density. They want as many people as they can packed into as tight an area as we can. And just like a company wants that, that's what the city needs. We need that kind of density and that kind of diversity of people all around right in the center of our city, and that's what we did. So we brought in to the middle of the innovation district a company that was thriving called Bellhops. Bellhops is like Uber, but it's for moving. So it connects up people who want to move small apartments with people who are willing to go out and do that work in the real world. Started with 4 guys in our city, now it has 150. True value in a place like Chattanooga, good, high-paying jobs that drive our economy. We had a company in our innovation district called Southtree. You want to know what having the fastest, cheapest, most pervasive internet in the world will do for you? It's a company like Southtree. Southtree takes those old audio tapes and videotapes that you have, they digitize them and they throw them up on the webs with a password so that you and your friends can see your family videos. Because they have the fastest internet in the world, they are able to do so at a higher resolution than anybody else. They now have about 180 people working there. This is real growth. That's what it looks like. So we're betting on this. This is what we're betting on as a true economic driver and generator of growth in our economy and a creator of wealth. And in 2014, President Obama called Chattanooga, 2015, President Obama called us a tornado of innovation. When the President of the United States spends several paragraphs of a couple different speeches talking about Chattanooga being a centerpiece of innovation, that also gets some things moving in your city. And so, as Lev pointed out, we've seen growth. Since 2013, our unemployment rate has been cut in half. We've had the 3rd highest wage growth in the country. What do people do when they have more money in their pockets? We're Americans. We spend it. And you see that in real buying power. So, what does that look like in a city block? This is in our innovation district, one of the older buildings that Open Table decided when they came into the district, they wanted to be in the middle of the innovation district. They were going to take this building and changed it to this that day. All right? It's a great building with old bones. It was underutilized and undervalued, and all of a sudden, within a few months, by telling the market forces, this is where you need to be, this is what we can do, we saw the difference. This block has been, in our innovation district, has been empty since the 1990s. I don't know when the building that was there was torn down, but how long it had been empty when it was torn down in 1995, but my guess is at least 10 years or more. Today, this building is being constructed. It'll be the first double-digit story building built in our city's downtown since the 1970s. Just to give you an idea, Chattanooga is a city of 175,000 people, a county of roughly 375,000 people, and a metro of 600,000. For us, right now in our core, we have about $800 million worth of construction going on today. Again, for a city like ours, our size, that is a huge investment. And we're going to double the number of people living in our downtown by the end of next year, which is incredible. So you can see this, you can see what a difference the gig makes. When people are advertising now, what do they have to advertise, particularly in the core of our downtown, to get people to live there? We have the gig included in our rent. So no matter where you go, you see these kind of advertisements saying, we have the ultra fast, high-speed internet. Now, what's the next lesson that we've learned as a result of this? We have to work to provide access to everybody. If you think about what's driving Chattanooga today, it's these tremendous entrepreneurs with innovative ideas. They're figuring out new things to do. What's our threat? Our threat is that we don't have the people to work in these businesses, and they have to pick up and go elsewhere because they just can't find the people to work there. Digital equity has now become a huge part of what we do. That starts with our youngest people. Chattanooga has gone through a process to make sure that we wire every one of our public spaces as well as we can to have our high-speed Wi-Fi from the fiber optic network. So our centers that are in every community, every park, all our public spaces, we actually just finished the last ones within the last few weeks. If you go there, NugaNet, clever name, right? We actually had to vote on it. We had an open competition to vote. NugaNet pops up on your screen, and the next part for us is to make sure that we maximize the opportunity and see, okay, now we've got all our public spaces, the centers, the parks. How do we continue to broaden that out and get everybody that we can find on NugaNet? Because we think that that's a tremendous opportunity. We also have to make sure that people in our community are taking advantage of this infrastructure to their house. We know that everybody has this connection they can turn on, but still too many people don't. So we started something called NetBridge. That gives our 100 meg internet to Chattanoogans who have a child on free or reduced lunch at the lowest price allowed by law. Unfortunately for us, the state legislature has set a floor for us for how low we can offer it, but we offer 100 megs at $26.99. My guess is that Lev has his 15 megs at something like 80 or 90 or more dollars, just to give you an idea of what that looks like. That builds towards the idea that people don't just need access, they need skills, because nobody's going to pay $26.99 a month for an internet if they don't know how to use it. So we started something called Tech Goes Home, again through the Enterprise Center, which is doing our innovation district. It also does this program. Tech Goes Home is an incredible program, mostly aimed at seniors and families with young kids, and it teaches them basic internet skills. How do you fill out a job application? How do you get an email address online? How do you pay your bills? These type of practical skills that aren't about coding or doing large-scale things, but you go to a Tech Goes Home classroom, and they're done in churches and community centers across the city. We have about 30 sites now. And when somebody understands how to print out a flyer for their church and shows it to the rest of their class, and you hear these seniors clap for each other and being able to do this, it's an explosion of goodwill because people feel left out. Too many of our people feel left out. And if we, as a country, don't do something about this, we will end up with gated digital communities. And we just can't have that. So the next phase, of course, is we can't just have access and literacy. We have to have people to work. And so Tech Hire is our initiative to push employment for people in our tech world. We were the smallest initial city to partner with the White House. It's all about getting people of color, women, and veterans into our IT workforce. If you think about it, the city with the most talent involved in this type of industry is the one that's going to win. We are living in the innovation century, and innovation is driven by people and talent. It's not by highways and infrastructure in the same way. Talent is what brings value to the city, and unless we invest in that talent, we're not going to succeed as a city. The final point I want to make, and then I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, is the progress never stops. We live in a world of constant iteration now. Think about the iPhone. I've got some gift certificates at my house right now to go buy my new iPhone. Hopefully I'll do that this weekend. There's always another model, always another year, always another app. cities and counties and states have to be thinking the same way. So for us, we were happy to be the gig city. Now you hear about all these different communities that are becoming a gig city. That's why we push to be 10 gig, and again, to stay out at the head of the curve. And we can't stop there. We're constantly finding what are those next big ideas that are going to drive our city forward, that is going to make this place, hopefully in 10, 15, 20 years, when a mayor gets invited back to the City Club of Cleveland, is able to show these pictures. The picture of our city today is going to look nothing like it does now. But we're able to find those next big ideas that get more talent involved, get more people in our community driven, and again, shows that we can make good on that progress from Outside Magazine, Best Town Ever. Thank you very much.
I'm Stephanie Jansky, Director of Programming at the City Club of Cleveland, and today we're enjoying a Friday Forum with Mayor Andy Berke of Chattanooga, Tennessee. We're about to begin the audience Q&A. We welcome questions from everyone, City Club members, guests, students, or those of you joining us via our radio broadcast, webcast, or our new live simulcast at the Parma Snow branch of the Cuyahoga County Public Library. If you'd like to tweet a question, please tweet it at the City Club, and our staff will try and work it into the program. We want to remind you that your questions should be brief and to the point, and actually questions. Holding our microphones today are Content Coordinator Teddy Eisenberg and Marketing and Outreach Coordinator Faye Walker. May we have the first question, please?
Very inspirational, so thank you. While you were talking, I was digging in and looking at some of the economic outcomes of Chattanooga versus Cleveland, and saw that we're very similar on most measures. But one measure where we're not similar are the effects of inclusion, and Chattanooga over the last 5 years, according to Brookings, was the 4th best metro area in the country, where we were the 81st out of the top 100 areas. And so when you talked about opportunity and access for all, I'm just curious about the political processes or what you had to do to mobilize the community in order to help that happen.
Well, I know that, first of all, let me say that from talking to the community leaders since I've been here, I know that this is on the minds of the people in Cleveland. I think that y'all are positioned to make huge gains in this. I feel confident that you will. And we are frequently talked about as being at the head of the curve on this, which is sad, because we're not nearly as good as we should be. And we've got to figure out ways to get much better at inclusion. So the big thing that I will say is that this is an area where there's political unanimity. People understand that you've got to get greater inclusion in the digital world, or people are going to get left behind. That's all there is to it. It's not just us. We need to have a national policy on how we do this, because doing this on a city-by-city basis is very difficult. But in the long run, as a community, we have to engage people and make those big strides. So I think that for us as a community, we've seen the benefits. When I talk about over the last couple of years, we've had huge wage growth. That's something that we know needs to continue. And business owners in our city, they're looking for talent. They're just looking for talent. They want to find it anywhere. And that gives you a platform to really talk about this. When you talk about the gig, I often get asked, what's the number one thing that the gig did for you? And my answer is always the same, which is it changed our mindset. The biggest thing that the gig did for us is change our mindset. So we went from a city that thought that we were at the back of everything to a city that was all of a sudden catapulted to the front of something. And we said, now that we're at the front, what do? We got to take advantage of this. And we worked really hard to be, we're working very hard to be a tech city which has inclusion as a core value, and you can feel it in the places that you go. but it's leaders constantly talking about it. It's working groups constantly working on it. It's having an entity that wakes up every day thinking about it and is held accountable for how well it does. That's how you make progress, and it's hard.
Have you made use of any immigrant talents to accomplish what you've done?
So this is a place where we need to get better. When I was initially working on the Innovation District stuff, I called one of my friends. I have several friends who are venture capitalists in California when we were asking them to come invest their companies in Chattanooga. One of the things he told me was that 40% of the entrepreneurs that he invests in are foreign-born. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of at least what his firm does, and I think we're trying to figure that out. Truthfully, Tennessee is a place that is not known right now as being hospitable to immigrants. That hurts our abilities to recruit people. On the other hand, Nashville is a place that is growing by leaps and bounds. Nashville, just so y'all know, has 27 people moving there a day. It's incredible. It's a boom like you can't believe, and much of that is new Americans. One of the things that actually we've spent a little time trying to figure out is there a particular community, foreign-born community, that we might be able to make inroads with and start marketing ourselves toward? Just pick one particular community and start figuring out how do we just go to all their conventions, go to all their speeches. This is an ongoing discussion. I don't know whether it'll work, but we're trying to figure out what we might have a natural tie to. We have some local leaders who could give us credible entree into the community and then market ourselves to them to bring more people to Chattanooga.
Sorry, where do you think that you would be if Google or Apple had bit? And is there something to be said about intentionally choosing the organic internal focus over the monolithic sort of knight in shining armor focus?
Right. Well, I mean, listen, if they walked up tomorrow and said they wanted to be there, we roll out the carpet. I mean, I'm not going to, let's be honest here. We want those companies. I also think that the second point, though, is really important, and that is that if you look at the studies, people talk about small businesses. Small businesses are really important, but it's high-growth small businesses. That's what's value for a city. So if you're a two-person company in 2013 and in 2016 you're a 40-person company, that's value. The city sees tremendous gains off of that. And the ramifications and downstream effects of that in terms of getting apartments and new restaurants and everything else is huge. So what I would say is we always want to have those big companies. But we know what the value is off of the growth of these small industries. And for us, what we have to do is just have a good mix. This is a really important lesson that I should have said earlier, and that is not only did Chattanooga hold on to its past for too long, but we were too concentrated in one area. We didn't have diversification. And like any industry, like any stock portfolio, like anything, you need to have diversification. And for us, to only have insurance or only have manufacturing or only have one particular type of industry, you want to build on your strengths, but you got to have a couple of strengths. You can't just build on one because for us, we are having a growing automobile sector. I don't have to tell anybody in this room what can happen to the automobile sector. And so we have to have some kind of diversification going forward to be as strong as we can as a city.
I think you mentioned that you had a pre-existing municipally owned electric utility system. Is that the case?
Yes.
What is the link between that and the internet, citywide internet that you provide?
So great question. So our electric utility, which was formerly called Electric Power Board. We went through a big marketing study and decided to call it EPB, very fancy. So EPB is the electric utility. It provides power to everybody in our area. In 2009, it decided to branch out from just doing power to running fiber to every single home and business, and it established a new arm called EPB-FI. EPB-FI is what actually built the fiber optic network and then runs it. So they provide internet, video, and phone options for everybody to whom they also provide a electric one. So in my mail this month, I'll have two bills, one for my power usage and one for my fiber usage, and I pay both separately. The finances were kept completely separate because we didn't want people to say that government's electric utility work was financing this competition with our incumbent providers like Comcast, AT&T, and others. So they were done completely separately, but they were run by the same people. The important part of that story is that one of the reasons that EPB is able to be successful is because it has the rights to go from the street to the home or to the business through the easements. It's very expensive for Google and AT&T and Comcast and others to go that last mile with their fiber because there's a complex maze of legal problems and financial problems that greet you when you try to run fiber to a home. But if you're an electric utility, you've got all of that right, have all those rights anyway, it makes it much cheaper and easier for you to do that. So that's the technical answer. One more point that's important to this, because we get criticized a fair amount for being a competitor to private industry. And it's a criticism that we take seriously, and I in particular take seriously. In fact, we tried to expand our market out to the next door counties, and we were sued by the state to stop us from doing that. The FCC ruled that we could, and just a few weeks ago, we lost our legal case in front of the Court of Appeals. My background as working on the Court of Appeals didn't do me much good there. We lost our case, and the Federal Court of Appeals ruled that we couldn't do what the FCC said we could. So here's really the question, though. Is the internet a necessity or a luxury for people? Nobody wants to provide fiber to the home to do HBO cheaper than Comcast. I promise you, I could care less about that. But what I do understand is that these days, not only do people get their entertainment through the internet, but if you want to get a job at Walmart, you apply online. If you look at the numbers, people who have internet at their home, in general, if they're unemployed, they get a job about a month quicker than people who don't have internet at home. This is true economic development and value. And if we're going to build equality and equity as a country, we can't let the digital divide continue to grow the gap instead of shrink it.
Mr. Mayor, in an effort to draw talent into Chattanooga, what impact do you see the cost of living, the quality of living, what Chattanooga has done to develop that as a city to enable you to compete against Atlanta, against Research Triangle Park, and other major tech centers that surround you in the South?
Right. So this is a really important question: is cost, because that's one of our advantages. But yet, as we succeed, cost grows, and all of a sudden, what we have said was our advantage becomes less of an issue. So we're not Silicon Valley. We don't want to be Silicon Valley. We want to be Chattanooga. We want to be unique and interesting and have our own ideas. So for us to attract talent, we come up with an entertainment plan. We worked really hard to figure out what are the different kind of venues that we need. How do we get cool bands to come here? Because we think that drives talent. Worked on our food scene. Again, I know that doesn't sound like something that city government should be helping out with, but for us, we want to be cool. And those are the things that get you on Outside Magazine, that get you called best town ever, that you market to young people and say, this is the place that you should be. Now, one of the things that we're finding is that as we see our success, we have to really figure out the affordability part, because entrepreneurs, when you say entrepreneurs, people think of the Google heads, and in fact, most entrepreneurs are poor. They have no money. They're struggling to get by. And so affordability is really important. We're working with developers all the time on how do we get more affordable housing in our core, because people don't want to live in the suburbs who are running these companies as a general rule. And so this is a big issue for us, is creating this affordability. Plus, and then I'll say with this one last part of our place-based strategy, is we have to invest in public spaces. So as government, we know that we want developers to build these affordable units. One of the ways we do it, we streetscape. We're building a $15 million park in the middle of the Innovation District. We're, again, giving those signs to say private capital come in. Unless we get private capital involved, it doesn't matter what government does. So we try to figure out how do we leverage our dollars to bring private investment and get true value in a community.
Mayor, hi. So there was taxpayer-funded gigabit broadband initially, right? And you've obviously made a lot of commercial ratables through the growth of your innovation district. Are there any other efficiencies in terms of service or in terms of costs that the gig has brought to Chattanooga in terms of municipal services that help save taxpayers also?
Well, the other part that we do, and this is important with our fiber optic network, is we do a smart grid. So it's also about energy efficiency and how you build on the energy. So that's the other main place that we see things. To build a more resilient community, there was a study that came out recently, I can't remember, a few $100 million that was saved just through the smart grid part of doing this. And actually, again, let's build back the story. Let's go back in time a little bit. The initial impetus to do the fiber to the home by the electric utility was in large part based on doing the smart grid. So it was to help the energy side of what they did. And then as they built it out, they thought to themselves, hey, we've got this fiber optic network. What else can we do with it? We've got fiber everywhere. And by the way, every city has fiber all over the place. It's, again, that last mile that's so challenging and difficult. So the big part is, yes, we've seen that, particularly from the energy side. The other part of your question, though, is this is a great marketing tool and reality tool. So when we are talking to the big companies, we say, here's what our network can hold. Nobody has a question. That answers the question for us on internet. And every company knows that they're going to need a great internet service, no matter what their product is, no matter what it is. And then here's my final pitch for ultra-high-speed broadband wherever you are. The history of the internet is that you need a bigger pipe all the time. That's just the history. We're not getting smaller. So when you first time you were on the internet, you probably were like sending email. It's very low demand. What do people do on the internet today? They do video. You watch Netflix and other, which needs a much bigger pipe to get all that data through. You just need to, and what's going to happen next? Well, you're going to be interacting with that video, so that I'm going to be able to watch the Cavs game, and I'm going to see, I'm going to see LeBron make a great shot, and I'm going to click on his jersey. I'm going to be able to buy it while I'm watching it. What do you need? You need a bigger pipe to do all this. So the history of the web is that pipe keeps growing, it needs to keep getting bigger. And if you're going to do that, if you're going to be the city where that innovation takes place, you need the pipe.
So Chattanooga, like Cleveland, is a legacy city with tremendous costs from an infrastructure perspective and likely risk-averse as we tend to be. How did you, in 2009, build the political capital to take on the debt to actually make this great investment?
Yeah, so that was tough. These decisions are tough. We had a great leader at EPB who had a vision for what needed to be done and exercised real leadership to do it. We got sued, by the way. We're experts in getting sued. We do a really good job of getting sued. And so we got sued for doing it. At the time, I was in the state legislature working on this. These are not easy decisions. I don't want anybody to think that they are. And in fact, It's very difficult when you face a hostile regulatory environment and often a hostile state government to what you're trying to do. It's worked for us. We've done it, and we've done it well. It's profitable. It's enormously profitable. We make a lot of money doing this, and that's great, but we also recognize that there are other communities that have not been as successful, and part of the reason is because you can, if you turn back halfway, if you get a regulatory environment that's overly challenging. I know that, for example, in Utah, the government is allowed, for example, as I understand it, the government's allowed to build the fiber optic network, but then you have to basically charge the cheapest rate possible to let anybody use it. Well, that's just like anybody knows that doesn't work financially, right? If you spend all the money to build the infrastructure and then somebody can basically come in for free and build their business on top of it, you're going to go down. That doesn't work. And so, again, figuring out how you do this is difficult and not realistic for every community. I will say that as a community, you have to figure it out. Maybe it's Google Fiber, maybe it's Comcast, maybe it's AT&T, maybe it's your electric utility. But the answer can't be none of the above, right?
Hi. So when we talk about public places and we talk about politics and we talk about workforce development, access and skills, we're also talking about education. Could you talk a little bit more about how this might be related to changes that you're making in your educational system in terms of either curricular programming or the development of career academies?
So we're working hard to figure out how we continue to make those links. We're starting this at the youngest age. So I talked a little bit about Tech Goes Home and working with families to build digital literacy. One of the things we want to do is start that at a very early age. And so at our Head Start centers, for example, that's one of the places where we concentrate Tech Goes Home to give those families the chance. I did some roundtables with kids. One of the reasons that they told me, and I think the studies prove this out, that they don't use the internet at home is because their parents tell them, stop playing on the computer. Stop playing. Don't play on your iPad anymore. You get a device that's given to you through your school, people tell you to stop playing. Well, one of the things we're trying to do as we build out this initiative is to teach parents how to set good ground rules, which is, I can use that at home too. I got a 13-year-old and 16-year-old. How do you tell kids this is good exploration, this is where it goes too far, and we work with parents to give them some ideas about how they can do that. In addition, the Innovation District itself is working to partner with schools on building out that curriculum, and not only that, but having kids come into some of these companies. We started an initiative this year called Step Up, which is all about, y'all may have similar things here, but this is a summer internship drive. We pushed our tech community to give many of those internships to people throughout our city who may not have seen a tech company before. And again, just building those partnerships along the way from the very beginning through the curricula and then to that job pipeline.
Thank you, Mayor Berke. Real quick question. Given Chattanooga's public sector's investment in the infrastructure, can you speak a little bit to how the public sector may now be innovating some of its capabilities, its services, leveraging the infrastructure that's already been built? As you look out 4, 5, 7 years, creating more services online, how are you thinking about public sector innovation in Chattanooga leveraging this infrastructure?
Well, we try to be an innovative government. I know that Armin and I were talking about this last night, things that he's been trying to do at the county. For us, we've opened up our data, so we're big into the open data community. We host all of our data at our library, which has a site that you can see all kinds of metrics about our city. every month I have a meeting with all our administrators about our data for our personal site, which is called Chattadata, or if you're into poetry, Chattadata, which I prefer. And we try to use this both for transparency purposes and also for performance purposes. So how do we drive growth, better government, make sure that we're doing things cheaply, because we want to be as efficient as possible so that we can use our dollars where they're needed as opposed to where they're wasted. And for us, that means really understanding what we do and trying to do it a lot better. And innovation is certainly part of this. So, you can't be a mayor and run around talking about innovation district all the time and then say, oh, but we're not going to do anything differently around our government. We spend a lot of time doing this. One of our most recent projects is we've been doing a lot with Behavioural Insights. This is all about what are the techniques that you can use that nudge people in the right direction, and figuring out if we can, different language that we can use in our letters, different language that we can use on our web will prompt different behaviors for people. So again, trying to be as innovative as we can in what we do as well.
Today at the City Club, we have been enjoying a Friday forum with Mayor Andy Berke of Chattanooga, Tennessee. Our community partner for today's forum is Digital C, and our hospitality partner is the Metropolitan at the 9 Hotel. We thank you both for your support and partnership. And that brings us to the end of today's forum. Thank you, Mayor Berke, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This forum is now adjourned.
For information on upcoming speakers or for podcasts of the City Club, go to cityclub.org.
Production and distribution of City Club forums on IdeaStream are made possible by the generous support of PNC and the Raskin Family Fund, with additional funding from Cleveland State University, Robert Conrad, and the Payne Fund.